Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to walk you through a complete expense tracker app built with Python, KivyMD and a custom backend API. You will see how users log in securely on Hotline, how the app communicates with an API to store and retrieve transactions, and how I integrated everything from the dashboard and income expense entries to the transaction history, and also the settings screen. If you're interested in building a real-world app with Python and KivyMD, or you want to learn how to connect your app to a backend using APIs, you are in the right place. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'm also going to show the code structures and how I integrated the API and how you can run this app yourself. Let's dive in. Okay guys, as you can see on my screen, this is the login screen. Now we have the API key here, the login button and the get API key. So if you have the API key, if you insert the API key, then you click on the login, it redirects you to the dashboard. So now this is how the get API key works. It's an API which I already built and is running on local host. On my Ubuntu here, the API is running, and you can see here the login screen. I created a function dev link to get API key. So this is just a Python thread.thread, threading.thread target. It opens a web browser. So web browser, I import a web browser. So web browser.open. It opened this link, the 127.0. This is the local host where the API is running on a port 8000. So it opened this link. So let's try it out. Okay, let's on release. When I click this button on release, if I release the press, it's going to open the web browser. So on release, it's open the web browser. So this is the API key. This is the place we are going to generate the API key. So we insert our name. Let's say we put Python. Let's name it Python. Now we click on generate key. It's going to generate a key for us, an API key. So this API key, we are going to copy it, then we paste it into our application. So if I paste it into the mobile application, I click on the login button, it's going to take me to the dashboard. So how does that work as well? It's also the API. Let's check that out too. Okay. So this function is just to show alert, like login successful, failed transaction. So this is a function to show alert for failed transaction and successful message. Okay, so this is the login section. So dev process login, store, secure JSON store. I'm using a lightweight database as well for storing sections. So when I log in, I don't need to log in again. So when I restart my application, it's already have a section that is saved. So I'm using a Kivy lightweight database, which is a JSON database. Okay, now let's check it out here. This is the JSON code for the database. Now I created a class secure JSON. The file name is user.json, user section.json. So it's going to save into the JSON store using this JSON store. So I integrate it to load or generate a key, this is the loading overlay, a loading bar. So this is going to load when I click on the function. When I click on this login, it's going to load. It's going to start the loading bar. It's going to collect the username. Then the API key is going to save the API key to the app. Then if the username is not true, it's going to stop the loading bar and it's going to show the alert error, API key is required. Okay, so now if the API key is true, this is the API URL. So to log in, so authorization, I pass in the username, which is the API key. The username is the API key. So we send a post request to the API. So the API return a response. When we get the response, if you are getting a 200 response, true, that means the API key is valid. So now after that, it's going to save the API key into a section, which is a section. So it's going to save it into the lightweight database, which I have done here. Okay, so then after, it redirects to the dashboard, which is the expense dashboard. So it redirects to this dashboard. That is all about the API integration. So all these are just other functions. So if the condition is not true, it will throw an error, invalid key. And if the API, the network is not reachable, you also get a network error connection. This is all I did here. And then finally, the loading bar will stop if all the conditions are met properly. So that is just it about the login with API key. So, and I'm also using a thread. So to make the app not to hang. So this threading loop, it helps to run its background. So it run your function in a background mode, so it will not hang your mobile application. That's all for the login page. Now let's try to log in now. Okay, let's try to log in. Okay, let me copy the API key. Now let me go to the mobile application. I paste it here. Let's insert a wrong key. Let me add the value. Okay. You can see the error, invalid API key provided. Okay. Now let me log in with the proper API key. Okay, you can see the loading bar. Now you can see successful log me in to the expense tracker mobile application. So now this is the dashboard. Balance is 0, total income 0, total expenses 0, and the monthly chart is going to display a monthly chart for each month of your expense. It's going to display that. So we can also add transactions and do every other things there. So I'm going to show the other functions of this expense tracker. So this is just the dashboard. Okay, so how did I integrate the API for the expense tracker, and how did I get the balance, the total income, the total expenses, and how did I do the monthly chart? So now this is the expense tracker screen. Now this is the API to get the currency, the API URL to get currency, like the currency, the dollar, the yen, the naira, euros, and every other currency. So now amount is null, the balance 0, total income, this is the initial value that will be there. And also format currency, I did this one, format currency, whereby it's going to format it into 2 decimal points. So that is what I did here, format it into 2 decimal points. So and I also did something here on enter. We also have on pre-enter, we have on enter. So on enter means when I enter the screen, when it's go to this screen, what is it going to do? So I click a Kivy clock schedule once. All this clock schedule is just for the app not to hang, so it runs background. So that is the function of all this. So clock.schedule once, self.load monthly expense chart. So it's going to load this expense chart. There's a function that is called load monthly expense chart. So this is the function, and this one we get it fetch the target month. Now every month is going to fetch the target month, then it's going to send the API. So self.api key that is saved is going to get the API key. Then it send a post request. It first get now what I did here is get a request. It get a request for getting the transactions for the balance and everything. Now the transaction, when it send, it gets response, the transaction that are saved in the database. So this is a request.get, gets the transaction. So the response from the API, this is it, response.json. So it's going to use I'm using the for loop here. This is just a normal Python syntax. So this is the Python syntax. So if not expenses, so we have income and we have expenses. So if not expenses, so no expenses transaction for that month, it's going to have a print function. So we don't even need a print function. This is just for debugging process. So let me comment this. It's just for debugging process. In our mobile application, we are not, when we deploy, when we package this into an APK file, so we are not going to get the print function. So this is just for debugging process. Okay. Now, this is the expense part, whereby it's going to get the category and the amount. I'm still going to show you how all the categories and everything works. So this is just everything for it. And then after, it's going to plot a chart, which is the pie chart. So it's going to plot a chart for us, and this is the code for the pie chart. It's just going to take only the expense. The expense for that month is going to filter all the expense for that month, then it plots it accordingly. Okay, this is just it for the expense dashboard. Okay, so now, so if no image is, if there's no expense chart, it's going to create another one that we say no chart to display. That is what I did in this. That's what I did this. So now the add transaction screen, this is another screen I'm going to show you now. Okay, for the add transaction screen, so we can either go from this menu or we go from here. So from the add transaction screen, this is the add transaction screen. We have the amount. So if you, as you can see here, this is the class for the screen, add transaction. So on pre-enter, we get the API key from the app. It get the API key. So before the on pre-enter means before you enter the screen, before you enter this part, it will get the API key for you. So before you enter, it will get the API key. That's just the function for the pre-enter. So this is just a function to show alert the successful message or the failed transaction. So okay, all this is just for formatting to make sure the amount here should only be numbers. It should only be digits. So now, as you can see, I can't insert letters. It's only numbers. Okay, so that's just for the function of all this dev format on focus and every other thing. Okay, so, and I also have the loading bar as well. So when I click the save button, it's going to load. That's just the function for the loading bar. I'll provide the source code for this mobile application. Okay, so on Kivy Post, this is just on Kivy Post is before you run your application, it's going to show. So now this is the open menu. The open menu is for the category, to open the category. Yeah, so you can see here on the open menu, I'm using MD drop down menu. So for item in this, so as you can see here, this is just for the drop down. It's going to open the drop down. Then on selection, I also have on selection here. So on set item, it's going to, when it's set, it's going to change the input field of this one to food or to bills. That is just the function of this set items. And all this one is just for dismissing. And the show modal date picker, this is for date picking. So it's going to show the date, the current date. This is the current date, and the previous date is going to show. You can go back, so you can only start from January 2025. I think I set a minimum there, so you can see 2024. You can't pick a date, but 2025 from January to the current month, you can pick a date. As you can see, 2026, there's no value. You can't select anything. So this is the current month. You can select it. Click on OK. So this is what I did. The minimum date is there, 2025 1/1 month, and the maximum date is the current date. Date.today is the maximum date that you can select. That's what I did here, and this is just the unbind the OK function. So unbind the OK function on this, and this is the function on date selection. So it's going to change the input field. You can see self.ids.date field.text. That is the ID for that particular screen. So it's going to change the text to the date I picked. That's how this works. So and also create a note to add. Okay, let's say I want to add 10,000 as income. Okay, as income, you can see the category is disabled. If I click on expenses, the category is enabled. If I click on income, the category is disabled. So because we don't need category for income. So then we click on note. Let's say I insert salary. Okay, I click on save. This is the alert. So transaction added successfully. Then I click on the OK button and I go to my dashboard. You can see it loads immediately. It loads the balance immediately. So I'm using on pre-enter. On pre-enter, we make your data to load faster. So I'm using on pre-enter, so the value will quickly change. So you can see it changed immediately. So the balance is 10,000. So the total income, is 10,000 for this. So that's what I did for the add transaction. So okay, let me try to add expenses. Okay, expense. Let's say I add I spend something, part of my money. I bought food. Let me select a date. Okay, let me select this date, and let me add a note. Let's say food or coffee. Let's say I bought coffee. Okay, I click on the save. You can see the loading bar. The transaction added successfully. Okay, you can see now my total balance is 8,000. So the total expenses is 2,000, and you can see the monthly spending chart to be 2,000, which is the category is food, and you can see the chart. Okay, let's say I had another expense. Let's add 1,000, and let me click on, let's say, bills. Okay, let me select this date as well. Electricity. Okay, let me click on save. Okay, as you can see, my balance is 7,000. The total expenses is 3,000 now. The total income is 10,000. I can add more income as well. And you can see the monthly chart is displaying the bills 1,000, the food 2,000, and this is the chart. Food 67% and bills 33%. This is the monthly chart. So every month all the expenses will be displaying for each month. Like, I mean, the current month you have, all the expenses will be displaying. So that's what is all about this dashboard and the add transactions screen. Okay, so what I'm just doing is that once I had an expense on an income and I click on the save button, it sent a post request. You can see the API here. The API, it sent a post request authorization, the API key that you have inserted. So now it sent a post request from the API URL, the Jensen data. This is the Jensen data. This is the data, the amount, the category, the type, the date, and the note. So it sent it to the API. Then the API will save it into a database. The API saves it into a database, and you'll be able to. So from the database, we can get all our data that is saved. So that's what I did, and this is the API key, and this is for handling error. I use try and accept as well. So if 200 response, then stop the loading bar, then you have a print function. This is just for debugging process actually. So we'll be removing them when we want to package it into a mobile application. So okay, this is just for the add transactions aspect. Okay, as you can see, the balance are updating. Now let's say we want to go for currency, changing of the currency. So this is the currency, the initial currency is in dollars. So let's say we want to change it to yen, we want to change it to other currency. Let's check it out. I have the settings section where we change to currency that we want. So I go to the setting, currency. So these are the list of the currency I inserted. So if you have more, you can insert yourself. So these are just the common currency that I know. So let's say we want to change to Indian rupees. Yeah, so now I click on Indian rupees, then it's changed. Let's see if it's going to change in our database. Okay, as you can see, it updates immediately. The currency is changed. So this is 7,000 Indian rupees. For the balance, let's say we want to change to naira. Okay, as you can see, it's updated immediately. This is 7,000 naira. So you change the settings to your own currency, so it's easy to use. So change it to euro. This is euro as well. So everything is properly, and everything we are doing here is saving to database. So every function you click here is saving to the database. That is what I did. So now this is how the settings work. This is the API for the settings. So on pre-enter, it gets the API key that is saved in the app. Then it fetch currency. So it's also sending a get request and a post request. This is a get request to get the currency. You see request.get headers, the API key, it will get the currency. So the API is already built. This is just the function to integrate the API. So I'm only integrating the API in the KivyMD. So this send a get request, collect a get request, then collect the data, then the currency. This is it. If the currency is not proper, is not getting, it changes to NGN. So now it updates the UI. So this is just for the updating the UI interface. This is the UI interface. It's just for updating the UI interface. So this is everything about the changing of the currency. So these are the list of currency I inserted. So you can add more if you want, and you can remove as well. Okay, so that's everything about the settings section. So this part send a post request, but when I change the currency, it send a post request to the database that I changed a value, then it's saved to the database. So once it's saved to the database, this one gets it immediately. Any changes, it gets it immediately. So that is why you can see that it's reflects immediately. Okay, and this is where my server is running. You can see API.get transaction, get balance, get currency, API settings. This is the API. It's running localhost, so I'm still going to host it online, so you can have access to it. Okay, this is just for the settings section. So let's go to the transaction section. Okay, for the transaction screen, we go to the transaction screen. So I have a loading bar. Now you can see this is all our transaction history: electricity, the coffee, and the salary. Okay, this is everything, and you can see the currency is also changed in the transaction. So anytime I change the currency here, it reflects in every part. So let me change it to yen. You can see it reflects immediately, and it's also reflecting the transaction part. Let's make it load. You see it's update. Okay, let's see how we do this now. This is the set transaction screen. Okay, and this is the API to get currency. So I get the currency. This is the currency, and the format amount. This function is just to change it to human readable format. So the 1,000.00. So that's just the function to change it to. In the database, it's not like this. It's not like this. So, but in a human readable part, it's going to change it. That's the function to change. That's what I did here. So open date filter. It filters the date. So I have a function that add every date and everything here. So this is the functions. So when I send the source code, you check yourself as well. So I have a function that filter by date as well. So this is the filter by date. When I click it, you can select the start date and the ending date. Okay, so let's say we want to select a start date on the 4, on the 3, and the end date to be 4. I don't think I have any transaction that I've done here. Okay, empty screen. I don't think I have any transaction here. So let's say, let me add the transactions. Let me add some transactions. Okay, say I had 500. Okay, okay, let me add the income. Okay, let me select the dates on the 2. Okay, let me say, can I say, let me say salary, wages, let me say wages. Okay, okay, I save that. Okay, let me add an expense, 200. Let's say travel. Okay, let me change the date to on the 3. Okay, let me add the travels. So train. Okay, I saved that now. Okay, you can see it's also changes in the dashboard, the expense tracker dashboard. Let's go to transaction history. Okay, you can see it's also reflect here the wages I added on the 6th. You see, it can't be at the top because of the date I inserted, so it can't be at the top. So it follow the dates. So the wages, the train, the salary, and this is on the 2. Now let me filter by date. Let's insert a start date on the 2, on the 2nd, and on the 4th. Okay, so I should get the data that I inserted. Yeah, so you see I get the wages and the train, which is what I inserted on the 2nd and on the 3rd. So okay, that is all about this transaction history. Let's see if I add some other function. I also have some other function as well. The loader, the first transaction. So now this is a get request. It gets all this transaction that I did in the add transaction. It gets everything, then it align it filter by date and by category, then filter. I also specify a limit. So I specify a limit. The limit is 10. Okay, let me change it to 20. I also specify a limit to 10. Now I'm changing it to 20. So the limit of transaction that will be displayed here. Okay, let the upload. The minute of transactions that will be displayed will be 20. So all the transactions there will be 20. So when you filter, you will get all your transactions. So but the limit for all the transaction here is 20. So but I have not add up to 20 transactions. So when I add up to 20 transactions, it's going to show. Yeah, so you can see it's not scrollable. So when I add more, then it will be scrollable. So then it will only show all the 20 transactions. Yeah, done. The current one from the top, from the current one. So you can then filter by date, then the start date and the end date. Then it's going to show you your other transactions that you have done as well. Everything within the date. Okay. Now that's what I did here. I've done that already. So this is just for updating the UI. Okay. And you see, I'm using on pre-enter as well. Is the on pre-enter, we load the transactions. So date picker. Okay. So this is the part for the date filtration. This is the part where I filter the date. So you can see get transaction, start and end date. When I send the post request, it's going to filter all the dates within that period. Then it's going to update the UI. That is everything about this application, and I hope you find it very helpful. Okay, so this is the balance and everything. I've shown you how everything, all this expense tracker work. So if you have any issue running this application, and this write in the comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more updates. Thank you for watching this video.